Now, today's video is for anyone who's been scrolling through TikTok or Instagram and seeing those aesthetic reels of people sipping matcha in Japan, working remotely on the beaches of Bali, or moving their entire lives to Italy for a slower pace of life. Sounds perfect, right? We mean, who wouldn't want that? But what if we told you there's a dark side to moving abroad that no one really talks about? Yep, there's the dream, and then there's the reality. And trust us, because we have lived in multiple countries and worked with hundreds of expats, we've seen it all. So before you sell all your stuff, book that one-way ticket and announce your move to the world. Stick around, because we're going to share the real challenges you might face. Let's dive in. Let's kick things off with the emotional roller coaster no one warns you about, culture shock. Now, you might think culture shock just means getting used to new food, hearing a different language, or learning that the grocery store closes at 4 p.m. on Sundays. But trust us, it runs way deeper than that. Culture shock is like peeling back the layers of a seemingly perfect Instagram post and realizing there's a messy, complicated reality behind it. At first, you're in what we like to call the honeymoon phase. Everything feels magical. You're walking through the streets of your new city, marveling at how different the buildings look, how polite the people seem, or how exciting the food is. Every little thing feels like an adventure, whether it's riding public transportation, visiting local markets, or even just ordering coffee. But then, the honeymoon ends. Reality starts to set in. You suddenly realize you don't understand how anything actually works. You can't read the utility bills. You don't know how to set up a doctor's appointment. You try to explain yourself in the local language, and people give you blank stares or awkwardly switch to English because they can tell you're struggling. Even small things become huge stresses, like why are there 4 trash bins and no one explained what goes where? Why is customer service so different here? Why do people seem to stare at you when you speak? Or worse, why does it feel like no one even notices you at all? And here's the kicker. You might start resenting the very things that used to excite you. What felt like quaint charm at first might start to feel like a daily inconvenience. You might even start missing things you never thought you'd care about, like the familiarity of your favorite coffee chain or how people stand in organized lines back home. Culture shock isn't just emotional. It can physically exhaust you. Your brain works overtime trying to process new information, customs, language, and social cues. And that level of constant adjustment can wear you down fast. Now, let's move on to one of the biggest headaches of moving abroad, the legal maze. We've all seen the dreamy videos. I moved to Italy with nothing but a suitcase. Sounds inspiring, right? What they usually don't mention is the mountain of paperwork, confusing visa rules, and government officers you'll be dealing with just to stay legally. Getting a visa isn't always as easy as showing up and getting a stamp. Some countries require proof of income, health insurance, background checks, or even local sponsorships. And even if you get the visa, it might limit what you can actually do, like working, studying, or starting a business. And let's not forget taxes. Depending on where you move, you could end up paying taxes in 2 countries at once. Yes, double taxation is a real thing. You might have to hire an accountant just to keep up. On top of that, you may be required to register with local authorities, carry specific ID at all times, or check in with immigration regularly. And don't expect anyone to explain it clearly in your language. Half the time, you're figuring it out as you go, with Google Translate as your best friend. So before you pack your bags, do yourself a favor, research the legal requirements thoroughly. It's not the exciting part, but trust me, it can make or break your move. Let's talk about the social side of moving abroad, because, spoiler alert, it's not as easy as it looks online. You probably imagine yourself blending right in, making local friends, joining community events, and living your eat, pray, love fantasy. But here's the reality. Making friends as an adult is already hard, and moving to a new country makes it even harder. First, locals might already have tight-knit social circles that go back years, school friends, family connections, childhood neighbours. As friendly as they might seem on the surface, you're still the outsider trying to squeeze your way in. And while the expat community can feel like a lifeline, it often comes with its own challenges. You'll meet people who are just passing through, who aren't looking for deep connections, or who are just as lost as you are. Friendships can feel temporary, like you're living in a constant cycle of hellos and goodbyes. It takes work to build real relationships abroad. You have to put yourself out there over and over again. Join clubs, go to meetups, say yes to awkward coffee dates with strangers, and sometimes it still doesn't click. You might feel lonely, especially during holidays, birthdays, or moments when you just need someone who really knows you. That's the part no one posts about. But here's the thing. If you stick with it, the friendships you do build can become some of the strongest in your life. It just takes time and effort, more than you probably expect. Next up, money. Or more specifically, how much moving abroad might actually cost you beyond what the YouTube vlogs and Pinterest boards tell you. Everyone loves to highlight how cheap it is to live in places like Thailand, Portugal, or Colombia. And yes, on paper, the rent might look like a bargain compared to New York or London. But here's what they don't tell you. Hidden costs are everywhere. Let's start with housing. Sure, your rent might be lower, but you might also have to pay higher deposits, key money, agent fees, or inflated foreigner rates that locals don't pay. Some landlords charge more simply because they know you're new and unaware of the real prices. Then there's health insurance. In some countries, you're required to have private health coverage to maintain your visa status. And spoiler, it's not always cheap, especially if you want quality coverage that covers emergencies or serious illnesses. You'll also spend more on small things that add up fast. Things like import taxes on your favorite snacks or personal care products, higher prices on international brands, monthly fees for VPN services to access content from back home, international bank transfer fees, and extra transportation costs if you live far from the city centre. So while you might save in some areas, be prepared to spend in others. Make sure you budget for the real cost of living, not just the cheap rent people like to brag about. Let's get real for a second. One of the hardest truths about moving abroad is that no matter how long you live in a place, you might never be seen as a true local. Sounds harsh, I know, but it's something many expats quietly deal with. You can learn the language, celebrate all the local holidays, eat the traditional foods, and still, people might view you as the foreigner. You might get complimented for speaking the language so well for a foreigner, or constantly asked, "Where are you really from?" It's not always meant to be rude or dismissive. It's just that in many cultures, belonging is deeply tied to heritage, family roots, or community ties that go back generations. And no matter how much you love the place, those ties take years, sometimes lifetimes, to build. You might also face cultural barriers that are harder to cross than you expect. Social norms, humour, body language, even unwritten rules about friendship or trust. These things don't always come naturally, and they're not always explained. And if you're visibly different, whether by race, accent, or appearance, you may stand out even more, making it harder to blend in, no matter how much you try. Does that mean you shouldn't go? Absolutely not. But it does mean you need to prepare yourself emotionally. Fitting in isn't guaranteed, and that's okay. You can still build an incredible life abroad, you just need to let go of the idea that you'll ever feel exactly like a local. All right, let's talk about something people really don't mention when they post those "I quit my job to move abroad" videos: career sacrifices. You might imagine that moving to a cheaper country means you'll work less and live more. But here's the reality check. Not all jobs transfer easily across borders. In fact, your dream move could set your career back years if you don't plan carefully. For starters, your qualifications might not even be recognised. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, engineers. Many of these professions require local certification or licensing. You might need to go back to school, retake exams, or jump through endless regulatory hoops just to do the job you're already qualified for at home. Even if you plan to work remotely, time zones can turn your flexible lifestyle into a scheduling nightmare. Imagine living in Bali but having 3 a.m. conference calls every day just to keep up with your clients or employer back home. And if you're starting over in the local job market, be prepared for lower salaries than you're used to, language barriers that limit your job options, smaller professional networks, potential fewer growth opportunities, or feeling overqualified for the roles that are actually available. On top of that, professional isolation is real. You might miss out on networking events, career fairs, or professional development workshops you'd easily access back home. So while moving abroad might give you a fresh start, it could also mean pressing pause or even rewind on your career goals. Make sure you weigh the professional trade-offs carefully before you make the leap. Here's a topic that doesn't get nearly enough attention: your safety and well-being abroad. When you picture moving overseas, you're probably thinking about food, fun, and adventure, not about whether the local ER has an English-speaking doctor or if the ambulance will actually show up in an emergency. But here's the truth. Healthcare systems vary drastically from country to country. In some places, you'll have access to excellent public or private care. In others, not so much. You might find yourself in clinics with outdated equipment, long wait times, or staff who don't speak your language. Even something as basic as filling a prescription can become a mission if the medication you rely on isn't available or goes by a different name. Then there's insurance. Travel insurance is great for short stays, but it often doesn't cover long-term living. And many visas require you to have private insurance, which, again, can be expensive and confusing to set up. Let's not forget safety. Some countries have higher rates of petty theft, scams targeting foreigners, or even political instability. You might find yourself constantly on alert, watching your bag, avoiding certain areas, or navigating public protests. And what happens during a natural disaster? Or a sudden health emergency? Or if your home country issues a travel advisory? Emergency response isn't guaranteed to be fast, reliable, or affordable. Bottom line, living abroad comes with risks you probably don't face at home, and it's your job to plan for them. Do your research, choose your location wisely, and always have a backup plan for health and safety. You'd think that after living abroad, moving back home would feel comforting, like slipping into your favorite hoodie. But here's the twist. Going back can actually feel just as disorienting as moving away. That's called reverse culture shock, and for a lot of returning expats, it hits even harder. When you've spent months or years adapting to a new culture, you start to change. You pick up new habits, new ways of thinking, even new expectations about daily life. Then, when you return home, it's like everything's familiar, but off. Your friends might still be talking about the same things. Your neighborhood might feel smaller. The little routines that once felt normal now seem frustrating. Why are prices so high? Why are people always in a rush? Why does everything suddenly feel so loud or so bland? And here's the emotional part. People back home may not really get what you went through. You try to share your stories, your growth, your struggles, and they respond with polite nods and a quick, "Wow, that's cool," before changing the subject. That can feel isolating. You feel like you've grown, but you don't quite fit where you left off, and you're not sure where you belong anymore. It's like you've become a different version of yourself, and now you're trying to live in your old life wearing new skin. It can lead to anxiety, depression, or just this weird sense of restlessness that's hard to explain. The good news? Reverse culture shock fades. Just like when you moved abroad, you slowly adapt again. You build new routines, reconnect with people, or maybe even start planning your next adventure. Now listen, we're not saying all this to scare you. Moving abroad can be one of the most rewarding experiences of your life. But it's not all sunsets and smoothies, folks. It takes grit, patience, flexibility, and a whole lot of realistic expectations. So before you pack that suitcase, make sure you're ready for the whole experience, not just the Instagram version. If you found this video helpful, do us a favor. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos on travel, lifestyle, and living your best life anywhere in the world. And hey, drop a comment below if you've ever lived abroad or if you're planning to. We'd love to hear your story or answer any questions you have. Until next time, safe travels.